Tell me more about this Christmas.
One eternity later.
Can you move in a little? Say Santa Claus.
Santa Claus.
Welcome back to Remembering the Razzies.
Hey, have you heard about Christmas? It's in danger, Tristan.
It is, consumerism and atheists are coming to destroy Christmas. And that's the message that we got from today's movie, Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. This is our first dive into more, socio-political type movies. And man, this was a bad time.
Yeah, it's generous to call it a movie. It's essentially two dudes monologuing in a car for 40 minutes with a little bit of extra stuff on the ends of that. It starts out with Kirk Cameron doing an 8-minute monologue. Then there's a weird random scene that comes back in Act 3 of the movie. And then there is like a 2-minute long
opening
animation.
Yeah, like 8.5 minutes in is when the real plot begins.
Right.
Kirk Cameron talking to his brother-in-law. The brother-in-law's all like, I can't stand Christmas because
it's not enough about Jesus.
It's not about Jesus anymore. We have a tree. And then Kirk Cameron's like, trees are made of wood. Wood made a cross.
Jesus.
Kirk Cameron spends the movie talking about different Christmas iconography and trying to tie it back to Jesus and Christianity. And he's very much pulling at straws.
He does that thing that people do as a joke when they're making fun of conspiracy people. Like, we just did it. We were like, so we have a Christmas tree. Trees are made of wood. Jesus was a carpenter, and he worked with wood, and also the cross was made of wood, so wood is just a cross, and trees are wood, so the tree is the cross. That's my favorite thing that, like, I won't generalize and say a specific political party, but that's my favorite thing that some politicians like to do, where they will be like, all right, we have situation A. Let's just pretend we're in situation B, and I'm gonna make an argument around situation B, and now I'm right. You didn't answer any of my questions about situation A.
Yeah.
You just kind of made stuff up about situation B that has nothing to do with it. For at least that portion where he's talking about, like, the birth of Christ. And honestly, a lot of it was just going over my head, because the whole time I was like, what does this have to do with Christmas? He was relating the birth of Christ to the death of Christ and acting like it was this huge planned narrative. Like, he's talking about, like, well, why did the wise men bring myrrh and frankincense? Those are burial spices, but they were actually bringing him something relating to his death many years later.
And what was he wrapped in when he died?
Cloth, which he was born in. This is under the premise that everything in Christianity is true and real, without question. Foreshadowing does not exist in the real world. There's no way that those wise men were like, you know what, this baby's gonna die someday. We should probably just bring him, like, some funeral shit.
And I brought you myrrh. Thank you. Murder. Judas.
Any argument that you could possibly have against Christmas, it tries to come up with a counter-argument, but those counter-arguments are so weak. It really is just a matter of faith. And, like, you can believe what you want to believe, and that's fine, and you shouldn't be a dick and, like, harp on other people's beliefs. At the same time, like, if this is your argument for it, and you're leaning out of faith and you're going into factual, your facts have to be way better than this.
Yeah.
Like, it's just goofy.
After 40 minutes of Kirk Cameron tying a snow globe to cloth, a Christmas tree to a cross, and Santa to a badass bishop in the 3rd century, and a random scene involving a guy putting a coffee cup in front of his head and ADRing conspiracy theories. After all that, the brother-in-law decides that he does enjoy Christmas.
Yeah.
And maybe these icons that we stole from pagan holidays are actually secretly Christian icons. And then he slides back into the house for some reason, and they have a dance party, and 5 fake-out endings.
It's just a really not well-made film. Even if you're watching it from a Christian perspective, it's hard to follow. Because he's, like, reaching so far to, like, pull all these elements together, it confuses you no matter what you believe on the subject. It's like, I didn't even think that I had to have an argument for this, but now I feel like I have to, but I don't know what the argument is.
Yeah, my favorite is every time it cuts back to the brother-in-law and he's like, oh wow.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. And then he immediately is like, well, what about Santa? Switch those words around. It's Satan now.
Goes from completely like mind blown, like, bro, my whole life has changed right now. Hey, wait a minute, fuck you. It's supposed to be an exaggeration of the arguments against Christmas, but
Yeah.
it's so ridiculous that you can't really take it seriously. So yeah, it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about where
Talk
this
about
is
what it's nominated for?
Yeah.
Okay, this was nominated for 6 Razzies and it won 4. Worst Screen Combo for Kirk Cameron and His Ego. Worst Screenplay. Worst Actor for Kirk Cameron. And Worst Picture. Let's start with Worst Screen Combo.
Yeah.
For Kirk Cameron and His Ego. It shines through this movie.
It's very apparent. He descends into this man's van and like just bestows knowledge upon him, solving all of the problems of the film, and then he stands back at the end of the movie and just like, yeah, I did this.
I did this.
Like, it's such a confident jerk off of a film.
Oh, the brother-in-law was played by the director. I'm sorry, we can get back to that in a little bit, but yeah.
That was the director.
Kirk Cameron bullshitting his way through these arguments and like just his pompous narration. He's very much smacking himself
Yeah,
on
he's
the
like,
back
I
through
got
this
a
movie.
good argument here.
Yeah.
And people are gonna love it. Oh, sorry. I'm thinking about the movie.
He's thinking about Christmas and
Thinking about-
materialism.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how... Oh, man, the argument is so dumb. Going into this movie, I assumed it was going to be about how people are like, no, we have to say happy holidays, we don't want to say Christmas anymore. Like, we are saving Christmas, we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
This movie is not that at all.
No.
It takes the stance of a Christian, essentially, saying, like, Christmas is no longer about Jesus and the birth of Christ. It's about materialism. It makes an argument against that, saying, like, despite all this materialism, it is about Jesus. It's almost like non-Christians made it to tell Christians, like, hey, calm down. It's still about Jesus. Any person who doesn't believe in Christ is not going to watch this and be like, yeah, I love God now.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But at the same time, like, it's yelling at other Christians. The conflict is between a Christian and a devout Christian.
Yeah,
It's just weird. It's just,
I know, it's bizarre.
yeah.
For worst screenplay,
Mhm.
I mean, that kind of covered a lot of it.
Yep. Sorry.
No, it's
I got
okay.
out of
So
it.
we've gone through like the basic idea of this movie and how it's inherently flawed.
Yeah.
Let's break it down more into like story structure
Sure.
and character.
Mhm.
Story structure, like we said, this doesn't feel like a movie.
Any movie that you open up and break the fourth wall, like you can open up a movie and break the fourth wall. Deadpool
Yeah.
does it great. This one has, and it makes it worse because Kirk Cameron plays Kirk Cameron in the movie, and he opens up with a monologue from himself, Kirk Cameron.
Not the character Kirk Cameron,
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah,
Kirk
himself,
Cameron.
Kirk Cameron. So it like really blurs the lines. It's essentially a summary
Yeah.
of the entire movie.
Yeah. Kirk Cameron gives you the spark notes,
Yeah.
and then you watch the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was a point in the movie where Tristan, like, jokingly turned to me and he was like, is this whole movie going to take place in this car? And then it does.
did.
Yeah.
It sucked. And then breaking more into the screenplay, I swear, half the movie I didn't even think there was a screenplay. This seems super improv in the worst way possible. Every time Kirk Cameron gives a spiel and then they cut back to the brother-in-law, he's like astounded, and then he just keeps like going on this thing, and then it cuts to Kirk Cameron. He's just sitting there like, can you please stop stepping over my lines?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is the stepbrother, he constantly stammers over his lines a lot. He does this comedy thing where, like, after a little while he just starts like kind of talks like this a little bit, and then he leans forward again. Like, he does the things that bad improv actors do,
Yeah.
and it does not help the movie's pacing.
No, it's awful. Let's talk about worst actor for Kirk Cameron.
I would disagree. His character wasn't terribly acted. Like, he's just an omnipotent, like,
'Cause he's-
chill dude, and he's like, hey, stop talking like that.
He's just playing himself.
Yeah, he's literally just playing himself, like, yelling at the audience.
If anybody deserved the worst actor award, it would be the brother-in-law, who is played by the director. He feels improved and really poorly improved. It feels like he was just kind of thrown into this.
Knowing that he's the director is actually kind of sad, because I just assumed, like, it was someone who went to Kirk Cameron's church who, like, had some acting experience, and Kirk Cameron was like, hey man, you just want to be in my movie?
In my mind, that guy was Kirk Cameron's brother-in-law, and they actually had that conversation, and then they were like, well, we should make a movie about this.
Can we just make a movie about this whole thing that we just did?
So he was bad. Kirk Cameron was literally just himself.
Yeah, he was just Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, I think this is more punishing Kirk Cameron because he executive produced this movie. I think he co-wrote, if you can call this writing a screenplay.
He didn't write that?
No, he was an executive producer though.
That's so upsetting.
It's got his name on it. This is Kirk Cameron's Saving
Well,
Christmas.
yeah, I'd always assumed that he directed it.
Directed it? Yeah, I did too. No, that's just the power of producers, baby. He just threw all the money into it. Okay, and let's talk about Worst Picture. This was nominated against Transformers: Age of Extinction, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Legend of Hercules, and Left Behind. This is tough, because this movie is really bad, but it still doesn't feel like a movie.
Yeah.
I feel like I watched a Netflix Christian Christmas special. This movie is less than 90 minutes, and it felt like a 2.5-hour film.
That's true, yeah.
Especially that ending when it keeps like, I keep thinking it's the end, and then they keep going.
Yeah, usually in film, I feel like if you have a big dance party, stop the movie at the end of the dance party.
Don't even go through the whole song like they did. It was a 5-minute dance scene of Angels We Have Heard on High. This was a rough one.
It was.
Do you want to rank these?
I would love to rank this.
So, for Best Made, I'm going last.
Yeah, it should be in last place.
Like we've described, it doesn't even feel like a movie.
It feels like a very high-budget church film. Like a church was given a lot of money to make a film. They had a couple people who were kind of familiar with how filming movies work. They technically understood how to make a movie because the movie looks nice. I'll give it that.
When they're pulling focus correctly.
Yeah, sorry.
And not blocking the sister with kitchen appliances.
The cinematography is pretty bad, but lighting-wise, it's pretty nice. There are some shots that are alright.
The shots are alright if you're like a mid-film school student.
Yeah.
Let's have the door open and pump one light as a backlight to give them an angelic look.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to find something.
You're trying to find it. Listen, buddy, it's 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. There's no excuses.
Yes.
Most entertaining. Ooh, this is a tough one.
It is either above or below Jack and Jill.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. I personally would rather watch Jack and Jill again than watch Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas.
You seem very strongly opinionated.
I'm
not gonna fight you on that.
It is tough.
Yeah.
I'm like this close to tying it, but I think if you had a gun to my head and you said choose Jack and Jill or Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas, I'm choosing Jack and Jill.
That is a very common situation, so I understand. Yes. I didn't think that Jack and Jill would be beaten by this movie, at least.
I know. I thought that this would be a funny movie.
Me too.
And it just kind of hurt.
More than anything, we were laughing quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we were laughing at just the ridiculousness of what was happening on screen. Like, it wasn't a fun laugh. It was more of just a, what the hell are they doing?
Going on? Yeah.
But, that was Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas.
Hey.
What are we watching next week?
Next week. Oh, boy. Next week, we got another double feature on our hands.
Oh, sweet. I bet it's a fun and entertaining double feature.
Oh, it's a great double feature. Mm-hmm. It's the Miles Teller Fantastic Four.
Oh, fantastic.
And the first 50 Shades of Grey movie.
That one I've seen. I'm not excited to watch that again.
So, join us next week for Sex and Superheroes.
Oh, boy. Or as I like to call it, Friday night.
What do you do on Friday?
Friday night. Bunkin'.